Charles-Edouard, you're a very young executive director of an organization that has saved already, only in Nicaragua, 500 children with heart disease who have been treated and cured. Now, how do you explain this giant step in your career?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on this show. It's always a pleasure to talk about Surgeons of Hope. And so, yeah, you mentioned it. We saved over 500 children in Nicaragua. But what really matters is that when we came to Nicaragua, there was no heart center. There was no surgery done at this level. And now that we are almost finished with our project, Nicaragua will be able to operate every year over 350 children that have heart disease. And those surgeries, as you said, are life-saving surgeries. So we're very proud beyond the number, because our goal is not really to operate, it's really to build and train the doctors that now Nicaragua will be self-sufficient.
That's fantastic. Charles brings his experience, his triumphs, his expertise in international relations, his language proficiency, and his altruism. All this is a big asset for this organization. That's what Dr. Eduardo da Cruz, the president of SOH, said when you were nominated. What do you think about this comment?
I think he's a little too nice, but no, I liked experience. I mean, as you said, I turned 26 last week. And
still a happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. But I do have a lot of enthusiasm.
Right.
And I also am, I speak Spanish, I speak French, and they wanted somebody younger that could do more of a PR approach to their project, because they were amazing in terms of program. Their doctors are amazing. The facilities they build are really good, but if you do not communicate well about it, then it's almost it's not as efficient as it should be.
Of course,
because without the crowd, yes, behind you, without those people, those listeners today, maybe going on your website, then it doesn't make sense. Because if we don't get more supporters, we won't be able to grow as an organization.
That is right, and that's where you come in. Since childhood, you suffer from an eye disease.
Yes.
And it's a condition leading progressively to blindness, which happened, I think, like around 2 years ago.
That's right.
So how does a visually impaired young executive director deals with New York on a daily basis?
It's a very good question. So yeah, I have a retinitis pigmentosa. We call it RP in the US because they like to shorten things. But I never was able to really read, but I had okay vision. I could play soccer and I could do all of this. But 2 years ago, it was a big transition. I started using a cane, which was a big, it's a big step because it removes you, prevents you from being in denial anymore. And I had to face it. And I had the support of my wife, and it was easier than I had expected. Because when you think of New York City as a French person, especially somebody like me from Brittany, smaller provincial region, you're a little afraid by all this gigantic image you have. But I quickly realized that, first of all, people here are extremely helpful. And also, it's very well organized. And it's easier for me to come to my meetings, go travel around the world, and it just requires to be fully aware of what I need and not be afraid to ask to people, which actually relates to my work as a director of an organization, because I have to ask for help all the time.
Right.
Yes, and raise money and find equipment for free, and so I have to ask help. And so it's in my personality, I think.
Were you seeking a job into humanitarian field right away when you got your degree?
Actually, no. Although I think I had the call very early, but when I moved to New York, I moved here to be with my wife, and I was ready to take really anything, especially at first. So I was not focused on a special area. I really tried everything. I remember sending, hundreds of resumes and stuff. But yes, I did PR, public relations, for a while, and I was not. I didn't feel accomplished, and so that's why when I had this opportunity, I jumped on it.
I see. We have to talk about Surgeons of Hope at this time. The president of Surgeons of Hope says we don't want to be thought of as medical tourism. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. In your introduction, you said that we saved over 500 children, and I said, yeah, but that's not what matters. What matters is that we build, a hospital and train the doctors. And I think that's what he meant when he said we don't want to do medical tourism. We don't want to be this organization that goes somewhere, operates 1,000 kids, let's say, and then leaves, and, after that there's nothing.
Right.
We want to be thought of people that think long-term, that have maybe less sexy numbers and marketing material, which makes my job harder, but that also have a better project and something that really is sustainable. And so that's why it's something that we have to explain to our doctors, because when they want to volunteer, we have to tell them that, this is not, we don't want to just operate there. We want to actually step back, look at how they operate, and maybe how we can help to do better. And it's just a philosophy. And so our motto is, what matters isn't what you bring, it's what you leave behind.
It's an excellent way of doing things. So you also train people there, huh?
Yes. It's actually the first thing we think of when we go somewhere, because training a cardiac surgeon takes about 10 years. So when there's nothing, it's a lot of work. But we take them, of course, they already have a medical degree, but they're very young. And so, yes, training is the big priority.
Mm-hmm. We will go back to Surgeons of Hope with Charles-Édouard, Catherine, after this break. If you just joined us, this is Pardon My French, New York City, and I'm Dominique Decoq. Our guest today is French native Charles-Édouard Catherine. He is the young new director of Surgeons of Hope. It's an unconscionable loss that a child dies anywhere in the world from a heart defect due to lack of resources for proper care. When a child living in the most remote area of the US or Europe with the same heart defect would easily be cured, Surgeons of Hope seeks to narrow that disparity by living up to its motto, it's not what we bring, it's what we leave behind. So Nicaragua, the project now is nearly done. I mean, you can talk about it with great satisfaction, I think, at this point.
Yes. It's a very long project. It started in 2008. And when we got there, first of all, we went there because we knew there was a very high need. The level of child mortality was 27 per 1,000, which is very high. And but there was nothing in terms of heart surgery. And so we saw this pediatric hospital, and next to it was an empty field, and the president, you mentioned his name, Eduardo da Cruz, had a vision, and he said, we can do something here. And they had a good relationship also with the local doctors and the Ministry of Health. And so they started this project. So they started with first some emergency operations. So we brought our own equipment. We did it in a bootlegged hospital, and it worked to save the kids that had no time in front of them. And in parallel, we started to form and build. And so that process lasted a few years. And then when the facility was finally ready, we moved, in there and started to really cure children because heart defect is a leading cause of mortality. So it's one of the easiest way to reduce the level of child mortality in the country.
One has to know that when you have a heart defect, it has consequences on the rest of the body.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and actually if people are interested, they can go on our website, surgeonsofhope.org. There's lots of info, but basically if your heart is not functioning properly, your child will have lots of side effects that can be problem to gain weight, it could be blue fingers, it could be many different things, because the body is starving for oxygen, and so it doesn't have the strength to develop itself properly. And again, there's several levels of heart defects, and the consequences can be very diverse, but that's basically it. And so This hospital now allows us to diagnose, treat, and do follow-ups with all the kids of Managua and around the capital. The issue now is that Nicaragua is a pretty large country for Central America, and the infrastructures are not so great. It's hard to go from one part of the country to the other, especially if you have an 8-year-old child that needs heart surgery. So we are also now building what we call satellite clinics. Yeah, so that the kids don't have to travel all the way, and we connect them via telemedicine, so that's really exciting, meaning by that the doctor that's in Managua, the surgeon or cardiologist, can have a look and diagnose a child remotely.
And then operate on site if necessary.
We don't have this ability yet. So telemedicine has many different aspects to it. We do diagnosis and we do also follow-ups. But for the operations, we have only one facility in Managua right now.
Thank you for giving this broad explanation about Surgeons of Hope. I think it's a wonderful association.